And I think all these symptoms, they just get checked off as like a womanhood. We waste a lot of money on supplements and all of these things that we think we need because somebody else is taking them.
Yes.
The best way to save your money and to get answers quicker is to have this blood work so you can make decisions based off of this data.
I'm gonna dive right in.
Let's do it.
So you have been obviously like very open about your hormonal journey, your journey with PCOS. So can you start from the beginning? Like what exactly happened to kind of like make you think that this is something you should even pay attention to?
Oh my gosh. So at the time, I was in college, and we just discussed this when you were on my podcast.
Yeah.
But I think the first thing was, I was having just a lot of blow and discomfort after I was eating. And then I was in a class, and I ran out into the hallway, bursted into tears. I was in so much pain, and it was an ovarian cyst that ruptured, which I didn't know at the time. And just because I wasn't educated, I didn't really do anything about it,
Wait, what did it feel like? Like,
oh my gosh, it was just like the worst stabbing pain you've ever experienced.
and
It
you
was
just
horrible.
you
And I
didn't
didn't know,
do
I'm like, was this a bad cramp? Like, did my appendix just rupture? I didn't know what was happening. And yeah, I didn't do anything about it. And then I had one more rupture. But in college, I started to notice my body changing a little bit. And this is very normal. I feel like there should be a class that all women take that teaches us the impact of stress and sleep. It was the first time for me that I was away from the comfort of my own home. You're staying up later. So there's so many changes in our schedule. And I think because we're not taught, this is when these things become normal, right? Because I was talking to my friends and like, oh, well, I'm bloated too. And like, my period's a little irregular. Or like, oh, well, it's just normal that we feel this way. So this is a conversation that just becomes very common, and we all start to normalize our symptoms. So we would take like Gas X or Tums, and yeah, I didn't really look too much into it. And then after college, I moved to LA, and I was working for American Ninja Warrior, and then I also worked for a YouTube channel. And the stress of LA, which can be a lot, especially from somebody that grew up in Indiana. And as much as I love my job, I love my career, I love the fast-paced life, I love the idea of like walking on a street here and someone could be like, oh, hey, like we're going to this project. What do you do? And then it's just like, next thing you know, you're working together and you're creating new things together. So that part was so exciting, but our bodies don't know the difference between good stress and bad stress. And again, because I wasn't educated, I didn't know how to feel if I was stressed. I didn't know what was going on in my body. And so I had had a period in 3 months, and it took me, I woke up one morning and I was just like, oh my God, how was I not paying attention to the fact that I haven't had a period in 3 months? And I wasn't pregnant, so I knew for sure. I was like, okay, that's not the issue. And then, yeah, I feel like my symptoms had kind of been creeping up from the stress and from all of these changes, but it felt like they just kind of hit me all at once. So I hadn't had a period in 3 months. I had gained 30 pounds over the course of 3 months. Yeah. And it was a lot for me because I have,
I mean, you're like the smallest frame, and like I cannot even imagine that.
So, and I had a lot of hormonal acne, like all over my jawline, kind of behind my ear. My hair was falling out. Like the ends of my hair were like paper, like see-through. I was losing hair around my hairline, and I was so tired all the time. Keep in mind, I'm like in my early 20s. I should feel like a spring chicken, and it took me a lot of energy and like a lot of focus to do really small tasks. And then on top of that, I just felt like I was a shell of who I was. Like my personality wasn't as vibrant and as bright, and I would look in the mirror and I kind of had this like film, this like yellow film over my eyes. And that was the moment I was like, okay, something clearly isn't right. I was pretty embarrassed. Like I just remember looking into the mirror and like I just started bawling because I didn't recognize the person looking back at me. And like, yes, not only because of the physical changes, but like I said, I was just like a shell of who I was. And I was pretty just upset with myself that I wasn't paying attention sooner. So to answer your question, it kind of started in college. I wasn't aware, that it was PCOS or that it was related to hormones at all, because guess what? That was never a conversation that was had.
That's the thing that like, and I feel the same way, and so much of your story really resonated with me because it was the same thing, right? And you just like let things get away from you because you think what is common is normal, and there's actually a big difference. Just because something,
a huge difference.
yeah, like just because something is common doesn't mean it's normal, you know? And like we all make that mistake, and not having the like what we have available to us right now, like when someone deals with something health related, I feel like you can at least go and start to get like inklings of what might be wrong. When I don't know how old you are, but like when I was in college,
27, yeah.
yeah, there's, I mean, like similar time frames,
Yes.
right? Where I'm like in my early 30s or late 20s, and it just wasn't there in the same
Oh, no,
way.
it wasn't there, and, this is when I was like, "Okay, I need to do something about this," and so I was like, I'm gonna make a doctor's appointment." I didn't know who to go and see, and then, the same solution that doctors kept recommending was birth control, and I don't have anything against birth
Yes.
control, but I had been on birth control in high school or beginning of college only for 2 years, and it made me a different person. So I knew that it wasn't something that I wanted to do. It just didn't agree with my body. I didn't like the way that made me feel, and so it was so frustrating when I would go in and I would try to talk about my symptoms, and the answer would always be, "Oh, just get on birth control to regulate your cycle." And I'm
Which
like,
is
"This is
very
just gonna."
common, unfortunately. It's a
Yeah, but
common
the thing is
answer.
that it's gonna prolong, like, I'm gonna have to deal with these symptoms at some point. And although it may work short term and it may feel like it's helping some of these symptoms, I'm gonna have to address these at some point. So
Yeah.
my whole mindset was like, I don't want to take any medication. I want to heal these symptoms or improve these symptoms in a natural way. And that was when I made the decision that I was just like, I'm going to find answers. I don't care how long it takes, but I'm gonna find a doctor that's gonna actually listen to me.
So then did you end up finding a doctor
I
then?
did, yes.
How? Tell everyone how, because again, oftentimes you don't know where to start, and also like what was the green flag from this doctor where you were like, I actually want to work with you?
Well, he was just listening. Like, it was the craziest thing. The amount of appointments I went into, and it just felt like doctors were either like in a rush or they were like, kind of felt like they had heard my story before.
Mhm.
So, like, which makes sense because I know it is so common. And I think all these symptoms, they just get uh, checked off as like a womanhood. Like, this is just part of what you're experiencing. It's normal for you to experience weight gain. It's normal for you to have an irregular cycle. So he was the first doctor that was like, when I was telling him these symptoms, was like, yeah, something's not right. We should run some blood work. And I was like, oh my gosh, he didn't sit here and say like, this is common, this is normal, like we can give you birth control or metformin or spironolactone. He was like, we need to pause, and like I want you to tell me all of your symptoms, everything you've experienced. Were you on antibiotics, for UTIs when you were in high school? Like, he did this whole deep dive into my history, not even like present time how I'm feeling. Like, he wanted to know everything about my health and about my body. So I was like, wow, that was such a good feeling. And I was tearing up during the appointment just
Oh,
because
it's such a relief.
it is. It's such a relief, and it just felt like he was listening. So that was the first green flag. And then instead of, trying to put me on birth control or just being like, "Hey, we can try these supplements." He's like, "We're going to run some blood work, and then we're going to build a plan tailored to you for what you need." Because this
Mhm.
is a mistake that a lot of people make, and I know that you know this, but we waste a lot of money on supplements and all of these things that we think we need because somebody else is taking them.
Yes.
And the best way to save your money and to get answers quicker is to have this blood work so you can make decisions based off of this data.
I could not agree more. And I'm so glad you say that, because I've said it many a times on my solo where I've been like, this is the way to understand what's going to work for you. It's like the surest shot,
Yes, it takes
because
so much mystery out of
yes,
why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And even though, like, yes, maybe I'm not going to understand the blood work on paper, he helped explain it to me.
yes,
And then that's how you build your plan.
yes.
That's how you start. So that was like the first glimpse of hope for me, was like, okay, yes, now I know what the issue is, but like I'm so excited that like I get to take a step in the right direction, because for a year it was me doing all the wrong things for my body, making
Hmm.
all these changes that were making my symptoms actually worse.
Like
And
what?
we've talked, oh my gosh, I everything. So I was waking up and I was having like a smoothie for breakfast, which was spiking my insulin. I was doing 2 workouts a day because I had gained
Oh,
30 pounds. But like, you
burn as many calories as you can.
yeah, exactly. And a lot of doctors told me to reduce my portion sizes. So in my mind, I'm like, ooh, I'm eating less food, which means I wasn't eating as much protein. I was not I didn't have a regular sleep schedule.
Oh God.
It was just so bad, and I think all these things started to stress me out, and when I'm speaking about nutrition too, like I was eating all my food sensitivities. Like I didn't know that they were sensitivities. So there were just so many things, like looking back, knowing what I know now, I'm like, oh, I had a whole year of just doing the wrong thing, but it led me to understanding my body and being able to make, the right decisions. But I think the big thing was like not focusing on protein intake. I was over exercising. I wasn't speaking, kind words to myself, and I wasn't in the right mindset. I didn't realize the impact of stress. Like, I feel like I could talk for an hour about all the things I was doing wrong.
I mean, honestly, and it's so sad because we're so well intentioned and we're trying
Yeah.
all of the things and like none of it is working. And it's the most frustrating journey to go on when you're like trying all of these things, but nothing is working. So I'm really glad you found this practitioner. And so the end result was that you had PCOS essentially.
Yes. Yeah. I was diagnosed with PCOS, and then I also had leaky gut and candida overgrowth.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so I would always feel, and I mentioned this, like so bloated after my meals, and it would not matter if I made like a healthy choice. And, I have eaten whole foods for most of my life, but it wouldn't matter if I had like a cookie or an apple. Like I would feel sick to my stomach regardless.
Mhm.
And that's not a good feeling when
No,
you're like,
awful.
because when you first start eating healthy, like it's a commitment, it's hard work, and you want to at least feel the benefits. And when you don't, it's like, why am I feeling sick to my stomach? I'm eating like an apple and a salad. Like, what's going on? You know? So yeah, I was able to make the changes in my nutrition. Sorry, I just got sidetracked. What was
No,
it?
so with the PCOS, but you
Oh
also had
yes,
these two
candida
things.
overgrowth and leaky gut. And so I didn't realize that like the sugar that I was eating or things like yeast or alcohol, my candida was like feeding on that.
Oh,
Right? So I
God.
had to kill off my candida.
So
That was goal number one.
how did you do that? Was it just through nutritional changes and you just cut out those foods that were
Yes, through nutritional changes, and I did take a few supplements. It was candibactin, AR, and BR, and liquid biocidin,
Mhm.
and then digestive enzymes, and all the ingredients that are in your blow capsules are incredible for anything related to like any type of irritation after
Mhm.
you eat. But yeah, so I took those supplements, and then for leaky gut, I mean, there's different changes you can make in your nutrition for that as well. But one of the things that I loved was L-glutamine powder
So
and
good.
MCT oil, and then bone broth. I
Yes.
love bone broth. It's such a good source of proline and glycine. And I'm not a doctor, but the way that my doctor explained leaky gut to me is essentially that there's little holes in your gut lining, and the food particles are seeping through those holes, and that's what's causing a lot of inflammation.
Wow.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
have to help repair, that lining so that the food's not seeping through. So bone broth was one of the, I mean, I drink bone broth every morning. I swear by it. It's great for your skin.
So do you just get up and drink it right away?
Yeah, I mean, I'll do like my oral care routine, I'll do my skincare, and
Yeah.
then that's like the first thing that goes into my body is my bone broth.
Do you drink coffee?
I do. So I cut caffeine out for like 2 years. Yeah. So
Wow.
I was pretty regimented because
Uh-huh.
I was so hyper focused on the way that I wanted to feel. So I did end up cutting out all caffeine. But now I've reintroduced, and that's the beauty of healing your body, is that your body you should be able to live in balance. Like I didn't want to be so rigid to the point where I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to live like this 24/7. Like
Mhm.
I've been able to reintroduce these things and enjoy them like in moderation. So now I'll have like a cup of coffee, but I won't have it like before my period. I'm just like I've learned so much about my body that I just know the timing of it now and how it's gonna affect me.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. And you're so right because I've had a similar experience where,
Hmm.
like, initially when I did food sensitivity tests, I was like sensitive to like this whole range of things like gluten, dairy, like there were all of these things that were just not good for me. And so I cut all of it out. And then I started to introduce it back in like a few years later, like little by little. And I was like, wow, I don't feel like that anymore, you know?
And our
Like,
body should be able to, obviously, unless you have a food allergy, like we should be able to process these things. And like
yes.
you said, I'm such a foodie, and food is something to me that can bring, people together. And I have so many fun memories that are centered around just like having a good meal with friends and family.
It's the
And so I
best.
knew that I wanted to get back to a point where my body could digest these things without being in constant pain.
So then initially when you got this diagnosis, like of
Hmm.
the triple threat.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, there's a lot going on.
So you got this diagnosis and you obviously like you cut out certain things that were your food sensitivities.
Hmm.
And then what happened? Like how long were you in that mode of like healing for before you switched over and started to introduce things back in?
Yeah, I mean, it was about 2 years, a little over a year. And I think, you just have to be patient. And it took a mindset shift for me because initially when I was in this conversation with my doctor and he's like, okay, here's what I recommend: removing gluten, removing dairy, no alcohol. We got to cut back on caffeine. You're like, holy crap, what can I have? But being disciplined gives you so much freedom and so much abundance. And so for me, it was like, okay, I can't have these things. I'm not going to focus on what I can't have. Let's focus on what I can and like how to find alternatives that taste delicious.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, if I can't go to Dairy Queen and have a Blizzard, I'm going to make one at home with like bananas and coconut cream and maple syrup and put some sugar-free chocolate chips in there that's made with good ingredients. Like it
Yum.
really required me or allowed me to like get creative and learn about these new brands with incredible ingredients. And like, yeah, that was how I fell in love with cooking. So instead of having that approach of being overwhelmed with what I couldn't have, I focused on what I could and made it fun.
I love that. And I think that that is such an actionable thing. Like, for example, like if you do, like, even if you're trying to like eat like more nutritious foods, I feel like the best way to do it and approach the situation isn't like, let me cut everything out, but more so like, what can I add to my plate? Because what that does then in turn is like those things automatically go away because you crowded them out.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so I feel like, of course, like in your scenario, you had to like get rid of these things, but like the way you approached it was essentially the same thing, that how can I crowd out these things by like adding in so much goodness and like having fun with my food.
Yeah. And then you start to realize how good you feel. And then it doesn't
Yes.
become one
Oh,
of those things where it's like, oh, like I can't have the pizza. It's like, oh my gosh, I feel so good, after I made this little cauliflower crust pizza. And like I genuinely enjoy all the food that I make and that I eat, and it's healthy. And I think you have to get out of that mindset. And then, like I said, when you focus on how good you feel, it's just addicting, and you want to keep eating these colorful foods or these nutrient dense meals or high protein foods, and it just becomes easy.
I
It becomes
also
second
think
nature.
that like our entire lives, like especially I think, you know, growing up when I did, it was like the processed food was like the yummy,
Yeah.
and then the clean was like the healthy, and it was always this like diet and then cheat days,
Yeah, and I don't like that.
It's
In
horrible.
the wellness space, I see this so often, and there's just so much fear mongering. People are trying to make you afraid of every single ingredient. I'm like, look, if you look close enough, first of all, too much of anything
It's a
is a
bad
bad
thing.
thing. I see people that like eat fruit, all day, every day, and like that's the only thing they eat. I'm like, okay, that can't be healthy. You know
No.
what I mean? I see people who only consume meat all day. That can't be healthy. So anything to an extreme is not healthy. But I think this narrative around fear mongering foods as clean or not clean, for me, that just created stress. And stress is horrible for digestion. It's horrible
Yes.
for your health. Like you have to find a middle ground. And like there's no such thing. Like, yes, there's going to be a Snickers bar that clearly is going to have sugar and it's going to have some ingredients that's not going to benefit your body as much as choosing like an alternative. Or like I'll make mine with like a protein Snickers with protein
Mhm.
powder or almond flour and just do an alternative, right? So
Yeah.
I try to look at it, I'm like, how is this going to fuel my body? Is it going to give me
Yes.
fuel? Is it going to give me energy? Not like this is bad, this is good.
Yeah, and also I think when you do that, or like even like these healthy foods, like, and you do it just for the benefits, but you don't enjoy the journey of like making the food and understanding that like a salad or like greens can taste so delicious. I feel like that's also a mindset shift that needs to happen, right? And
Yeah.
I love that like your page, so much of it is dedicated to the joy that you have when you're creating new recipes or like sharing these things with all the rest of us, and it's
Yeah.
so nice to see. So when you got this diagnosis and you started realizing that you have to kind of change the way that you eat, by that point were you someone who had been like cooking? Like, were you a foodie?
No.
So you like
I didn't
literally
know how to
like
cook.
you figured it out.
Yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh. My grandma kind of helped me fall in love with cooking, but it was like Texas sheet cake. Like it was like desserts, it wasn't like healthy cooking. And then growing up, my mom, she made some crock pot meals, but like a lot of my childhood was focused on movement and not so much nutrition. So like it
Mm,
wasn't like I grew up in a house where I learned how to cook and it just like came naturally to me. So when I started this journey, no, I had no idea what I was doing, but I was like, okay, I want to try making like a sweet potato brownie, or like I want to try making spaghetti squash instead of using like noodles out of a box. So for me, I would just find recipes and foods that I had enjoyed in the past, and I'm like, okay, what alternative can I find? But like it has to taste good.
yes.
Like if I am gonna make a swap, whether it be beauty, food, like I have to love the food or love the product. And like you said, you have to be able to find joy in it. So like if you already have the mindset of like, oh, like I have to go grocery shopping and like, oh, I have to have a spaghetti squash noodle instead of a regular noodle, like just wait till you try it, see if you like it, and then if you don't force yourself to eat it. There's
Agree.
so many alternatives and so many options out there now. So that's like my one piece of advice too, is if you're new to it, like don't try to trick yourself into liking something if you actually don't, because you're not going to be able to maintain it.
I think it's so much the same rules for movement, right? It's like find
Mhm.
the movement that you love, and
Yes.
it's the same thing. Like find the damn vegetable that you like. Okay, just because I like Brussels sprouts doesn't mean that you have to like it. Like
Exactly.
maybe you like cauliflower, and
Yeah.
that's good.
Yeah,
Maybe you eat
exactly.
that.
Yeah, and too, like you don't have to be a chef. And I know you said this
Exactly.
earlier, like I'm just chopping food up and putting it together and hoping that it tastes
Yeah.
good. Like the other day I made and I love this combo. I did like beef bowl with pineapple and rice and almonds and avocado, and like people might be like, "Oh, like beef
Wait,
and
that sounds
pineapple, that's weird."
amazing.
It's so good. Like I just put random stuff together.
I
And I
love
don't
that.
make it pretty every single time. Like, yes, over time have I learned how to like slice an avocado and make it look cute? Yes, but you don't have to do those things. Like it doesn't have to be glamorous.
So then tell me, like, just typically, like, take me through like a day in your life when it comes to food.
Yes. Okay. So I will wake up, and this doesn't really count as food, but I like to start with bone broth.
Hmm.
So I'll either do like a Chroma Wellness beef bone broth powder if I'm traveling, or I like Kettle and Fire or
Oh, they're
Paleo.
so good. I love Kettle and
Yeah.
Fire.
And then Paleo Valley actually has a chocolate bone broth
I
protein
didn't even
powder.
know that that could
So if you're
exist.
somebody who doesn't like the flavor of bone broth, that's a great place to start. Also a good like coffee or latte alternative. So
Uh-huh.
I'll do that with like cashew milk, put some cinnamon on it. So good. So I'll start with that, and it just like sets my stomach up for good digestion. And then I really love to focus on a high protein breakfast.
Hmm.
I don't consume a lot of eggs. It's one of my high sensitivities, and that's like the one thing that I haven't like fully added back in. I'm selective. I'm like, if I'm gonna have eggs, it's gonna be like because it's baked into a cake or
Yeah,
something, and I don't like have
the best eggs.
eggs for breakfast. So I'll do like chicken sausage, like Amy Lou's chicken sausage. I'll pair that with quinoa, avocado, and then I love these frozen veggies from Pura Vida. I get them
Hmm.
at Costco.
Okay.
And like this literally takes me 10 minutes. I'm a big fan of getting pre-cooked
Quick.
grains, frozen vegetables, and then I'll just slice up my avocado. The meat's already pre-cooked. I'm just warming everything up. Like it's literally that easy. And then I'll put some hot honey or some type of like sauce on top, and that's breakfast ready to go.
That sounds incredible.
Yes, it's nourishing, it's warm, like my body loves it. So that's kind of what breakfast looks like. And then for a snack, I love a meat stick.
So good.
Yeah, or like a handful of pistachios, which is high protein, pumpkin seeds, or have you ever had the Once Upon a Farm like berry smoothie?
No.
It's the only prepackaged like on the go smoothie I found that doesn't have any added sugar or like unnecessary
Wait, what's it
ingredients.
called?
Once Upon a Farm, and it's gonna be in the section where you get your yogurt, so you have to try it. It's
I'm
really good.
literally like making note of
Yes,
this.
and it's nice because it's like refreshing. Because sometimes if you're having a meat stick, it's like you need that little like
Yeah, a
pick
little.
me up of
Yeah.
something fresh. So that's a typical snack. And then for lunch, I'll do like some type of salmon bowl. So
Hmm.
I like to do like wild Alaskan salmon, and I'll do like rice or some type of grain, and then I'll do it with like tropical pico. So pineapple, mango,
Ooh,
cucumbers,
yum.
and I'll do like everything but the bagel seasoning, some
Mm.
cilantro, and it's like fresh. It's satisfying. I like having like a lighter, lunch. Salmon's great, and sometimes I'll do like the salmon air fryer bites. But yeah, so lunch is like
So good.
quick and easy,
Uh-huh.
and then dinner, I love red meat. I'll do like a steak taco or a steak salad.
Girl
And
after my own heart.
yes. So yeah, it's simple and it's easy. I try to focus on getting a lot of my protein from food, but I'll work in those chopsticks or protein powder or whatever it may be. But yeah, I try not to overthink it, and I'm a big fan of making the same meals. Like if you follow me on socials, you've probably seen the salmon bowl like 100 times. So
But you know what? When it works, it works. Like, and a
yes.
salmon bowl is so easy. Like, I always find different ways to like season the salmon or like
Yes.
use a different sauce. And I feel like I keep going back to it, like that and like a side vegetable. Oh, like so good. Never
Yeah,
misses.
it's so good. But my biggest tip is if you're new to cooking, get the pre-cooked grains. I get and you want to be careful of looking at the ingredients because some of them have unnecessary ingredients. But Thrive Market makes a quinoa that's literally just quinoa and water. Like you want to
Mhm.
make sure it's just the grain and water. and then you pop it in the microwave. If you're not a fan of the microwave, then you can go ahead and make it in a rice cooker or something. But that saves me so much time. The frozen veggies, such a big time saver. I'm not chopping, I'm not overthinking it. It's ready to go. So like those two things are great. And then also prepping sides. I'm not a big fan of meal prep because I'm sorry, but on day 3, I don't want to eat the chicken that I made on Monday. Like I actually
it's
want
over.
to vomit. Like it's done. So I like to prep things that I'm actually going to use in my meals that's going to save time. So whether it's a tropical pico or like a carrot ginger salad or a dressing, like I'm a big fan of prepping things that are going to get used. I also love dessert prep. I'll always have desserts like in my freezer to keep me from grabbing random things throughout the day.
I love that. And
Yes.
like these are such good, easy hacks that I feel like anyone can do. Just like I think prep and like being prepared.
Yes.
Just know, like, let's be realistic and like know, like realistic in terms of time and like what you want to eat. And then I think like the rest is easy.
Yeah, you do have to have a plan. Like,
yeah, you have to have a plan.
You don't want to think about what you're going to have for lunch when it's time for lunch, because then you're going to order
Exactly.
DoorDash or
Yep, correct.
whatever it may be. Like, you need to know, even if it's like the morning of, I'm going to go to the store and get my protein. I'm going to have it with my veggies. And then, you just have a plan.
Yeah, I love that. So then also you said that when, pre-understanding like what was going on, you were doing like high intensity workouts. Okay.
Yes.
So what are you doing now? Like what's the workout schedule?
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing about exercise is that and just changes that you're making in your life in general, it's going to evolve because our bodies are going to need different things at different times. So my workouts look different now than they did when I was first making these adjustments. But for me, the first step was swapping those high impact workouts to low impact workouts. And so this was a lot of walking, which I know you love.
Love.
It's great to you can hop on your calls, you can call your mom. Like, it's a great way to just get things done. And I notice if I am multitasking, I end up walking longer.
I agree.
So I love walking. It's also great to walk after meals. I feel like that helps a lot
The best.
with digestion. So that, and then 12-3-30, which is like incline walking. That's another fun thing you can do if you're like, oh, I just don't want to go outside and go for a stroll. I love hot yoga. I started doing so much hot yoga, and it was the first time in my body that I was like, felt fluid, because when I had so much inflammation and so much bloat, I just felt like I was like, it's so hard to describe. Like, you just feel like you're moving in slow motion. So hot yoga was one of those things, something about like getting in there and sweating and just like, it helped me be more in tune with my body, and it just made me feel a lot more fluid. That's the best way I know how to describe it.
Were you going to a class for this?
Yes, it was when I lived here. I was going to Hot 8, and then there's a studio in Indiana called Soul that I was going to. So yeah, I'm a big fan of like hatha or vinyasa, but I love a hot room. Like, I want to be drenched in sweat. I cannot stand when I go into a hot yoga class and I'm like, it was literally hotter outside. Like, please, I want to feel like I'm on fire, which is kind of crazy, but I need to be hot. And then strength training. So this is what I feel like really helped change my body composition. And, I love a full body dynamic workout. So, and I would just grab a pair of dumbbells and I would stand in one corner of the gym and do the whole thing there. Like, I'm not going around to every single machine. And like, that's how I started. I wasn't necessarily targeting different muscle groups, but doing like a reverse lunge to a curl or an RDL to an upright row. And it was just so much fun for me because I'm like, wow, like, I feel strong. I have more energy. It started to change the way I felt, not only while I was working out, but like throughout the day as well. And the framework for this, if you're new to this, and if you're somebody who gets bored working out, because I know when I first started, I was like, oh my gosh, a 45-minute workout, like, oh, that seems like so long. I would break it up into like, let's say it was a 40-minute workout, 10-minute segments. So, okay, I'm going to walk. I'm going to incline walk for 10 minutes. And then I'm going to do 10 minutes of strength training. I'm going to go back and do 10 more minutes of walking and then finish with my last round of strength training.
Oh, that's smart.
Yes. And it was like, okay, I've got 10 minutes
It's
done.
dynamic.
Yes. And it just kept my like body moving, my brain going. And I'm like, it was just 10-minute chunks that allowed me to like pass the time more quickly.
Yeah.
So,
I love that. That's actually a very good hack. And I think it keeps it interesting.
yes, because you're like kind of moving around and it just makes it feel like the time is passing quicker than what it is.
That's so cool. And so then you did like, and then after that, like once I guess you were used to it, then did you move into more like traditional strength training, or are you still doing the segments?
Yeah, I mean, I still love the segments, but now I feel like I'm a little bit more fluid. So, you know, I'll have a day where I'm working upper body, and then I'll have a day that's focused on glutes because now I'm really focused on building more muscle.
It's the
Uh,
best feeling. My
it
my
is.
husband makes a joke because I've been, like we talked about this, but I've been like working out at the gym for like years now.
Yeah.
But he was like, Sif, if you keep doing your lower body like this, your butt is gonna be up to your head. Like that's how high and it's like the coolest thing because I'm like,
Yeah.
my God, like I didn't look like this before.
It's like art. The
Yeah.
way your body can change is absolutely incredible. But yeah, so now I'll have days that are more focused on specific muscle groups, and then I always pair it with some form of cardio, whether that's a stair stepper, whether that's walking. I have a little treadmill on my balcony, and I'll go out there and walk in the morning or walk in the evening. And then again, it's like nice that I'm in Florida and can walk by the water. But that's my magic combo. I'll work in some Pilates. I don't think, like I said, too much of anything is not a good thing. So I think it's really important to have that variety. But right now, strength training is just making my body feel so good.
I love it. And I
Yeah.
think like also I love that you say that, you do what feels good in that moment.
Mhm.
And like I think recognizing that it won't be the same thing for the rest of your life,
No.
and mixing it up and listening to your body is really important.
Yeah. And the more I started to learn about cycle syncing, that's when I started to understand how to move, you know, with my cycle and how I could really start to optimize just like my health in a new way. So, you know, during my menstrual cycle, I know that I'm not going to have a ton of energy and want to be doing crazy intense
Hmm.
workouts. So I'll kind of give myself a break, but like on day 3, I usually feel pretty good. So maybe I'll start with resistance band exercises or walking or whatever it may be,
Hmm.
and then during my, you know, follicular phase, I have a little bit more energy, so I'm picking up the intensity of it. And then ovulation is when I feel my best.
Yeah. And
I'm
like
like ready to
prime.
lift some
Yeah.
weights. I'm like ready to run. I'm ready to like do all the things. And then during my luteal phase, sometimes I don't feel so great. So I'm, you know, reducing the intensity. I'm focusing again more on just like maybe some lighter weights. And yeah, you just listen to your body, you do what feels good. And I just feel like it's allowed me to just like cycle syncing in general and working out with my cycle. It takes away the mystery of why you're not feeling good,
Yeah.
and you don't put as much pressure on yourself, and you're not stressing your body out.
Yeah. Agree. Love that. Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to leave some time for audience questions.
Yes.
Okay. So the first one is at what point did you notice that you were losing the weight that you'd gained?
It was probably after I want to say 6 months of implementing changes.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that 4 to 6 months, and it's what I want to say this is try not to focus so much on the weight aspect of it. I think for me it was more important to focus on like what does my energy feel like now? Is my skin glowing? There's a lot of other ways to measure progress, but yeah, I want to say it was after like six months or so.
I love that. And I think it gives people who have gone through the same thing a lot of hope because hormonal weight gain and just like seeing your body change in a way that you don't feel control over
Mm-hmm.
can be very frustrating. And
Yeah.
so, having someone like yourself who's gone through it and come out the other side is so inspiring.
Yeah, the inflammation was almost immediate. That was like a month. And then the
Wow.
actual body composition starting to change was, yeah. And it just, some people aren't always honest. It takes a long time, especially if you're doing it naturally. So
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
patient.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Do you have any tips for hair loss and I guess like hair health in general?
Yes. So increasing my protein intake is something that really helped thicken my hair. And then I love Nutrafol. I've
Hmm.
taken Nutrafol. I think that's a great supplement. And then there's a hair oil that I swear by. It's called, is it the natural hair oil? What's the name of it? Oh, I'm gonna draw a blank on
What
the
is it?
name. The founder's story is so cool. She had alopecia, and it's all natural ingredients. I want to say it's like 4 to 5 ingredients.
Wow. Okay. You send
Yes,
it to me and we'll put it
I
in the
want to
show
say it's
notes.
just called the natural hair oil, but
Uh-huh.
I'll send it to you so you
Yeah.
have it. So having a good like hair oiling routine has helped as well.
I love that. It's very similar, I feel like.
The
Or
biggest thing for me though was nutrition and
yeah,
protein.
I agree.
Yeah.
The protein is a game changer. Okay, next question. How did you find the sweet spot of nourishing your body with healthy foods while not getting too obsessive about it?
Yeah, I think this comes back to mindset, and you start to realize like how good you feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I started to almost obsess on that. Like, oh my gosh, I'm waking up with so much energy, or I feel like my body's digesting food so much more. So I would say try to focus on that, and then give yourself grace. If you are craving something sweet, I would say do your best to see if you can like get creative and use this as an opportunity to discover like a different way to make a Snickers bar or something like that. But give your body what it needs, because ultimately, if you don't satisfy that craving, you're going to reach for something else.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Okay, supplements specifically that you took to help with your PCOS.
Yes. Okay. So myo and isotal was a big one. Omega-3, I think everybody can benefit from omega-3. And I want a disclaimer here. This was based off of my blood work. So,
I mean, we've already touched on
we have
this. We're
touched on this,
both
but I do,
fans,
yes.
yeah, of blood
Yeah,
work.
definitely get your lab testing done. I also took vitamin D, vitamin B12, and I think the biggest game changer was probably magnesium, just for helping with stress levels and sleep. So
Love. Yeah, magnesium is like game changer
I
for
might be
sure.
missing a few, but those are the first ones that come to mind.
Okay, last question. What filter app do you use on your pictures?
Oh, Teza app. Yeah, I do Teza, and I just do it's like the cocoa
Oh,
one.
love. We have the same edit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just pop it in there, and I do the cocoa color, and I don't edit my pictures
Yeah.
or anything like that, but that's the color overlay that I use.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being
Yes.
here. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Amazing. It was so much fun. So you can find me at Gracie_Norton on both TikTok and Instagram. I also have a podcast. It's called Wellness Her Way with Your Media. And then, yeah, I have a cookbook. So if you are feeling inspired after listening to ways to build healthy meals, the cookbook is called Cooking Up Wellness, and it's linked on my Instagram profile. And it's an ebook, so you can just download it straight to your phone or your computer. So
Thank you so much for being here. This was so much fun.
yeah, thank you for having me.